Be sure to watch my TED Talk on londonreal.tv. Okay, here we go. This is Silicon Reel, the video podcast dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I am Brian Rose. I also host London Reel, which is a similar trialogue format with three people. We've had guests like Bruce Perry from the BBC series Tribe. We've had Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour workweek guy here. We've had futurist Jason Silva, all sorts of different people here. But this is Silicon Reel. My co-host today is entrepreneur Colin Pyle, who comes to London via Toronto, sometimes on long motorcycle tours via China and India, getting Guinness Book World Records, you name it. Colin, thanks for being here. You're looking good today.
Thank you. Cleanly shaven as of November 1st.
Yeah.
So I'm rocking the Movember this month.
It's a brave move.
And I have to raise some cash, so
okay.
Come to Twitter and
yeah, how do we do that?
Sponsor me. Yeah, I'll put the link up. I'll tweet the link up, or I'll put the link in my personal Twitter at PyleC.
Okay.
And then, right now, a lot of people are like, well, we want to see something before we donate. So that's fair enough.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Give me a week.
Okay, cool. And I always introduce you as an entrepreneur, but we don't even know what you're doing. So what is going on with you these days before I get to our guest?
Yeah, just quick. One of the things, lingos.co. So lingos.co is a language website, social network for language learners and teachers. So just launched that kind of six weeks ago.
Yeah, great.
So really
site.
excited. So yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. And then doing a bunch of other stuff, coffee and all sorts of stuff, producing another TV show in the new year. So
awesome.
Without me in it, which should be good because I'm done being in front of the camera.
You don't like that, huh?
No.
Yeah, I love your ride in China, so people should check that out as well.
Yeah, cool.
So awesome, very cool. Our guest today is Mr. Fernando. Tell me if I'm going to pronounce this right. Is it Ripolles?
Yes, that's right.
You like that accent?
Yeah, very
that's
good.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I can tell you come from San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, I was always very serious about my accents. I did learn Spanish when I was in San Diego, and I always tried to get my accents kind of right.
So you speak Spanish?
Pretty good. It's Mexican Spanish, not Spanish.
I was going to say slightly Mexican twang there, but still pretty good. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Senor.
I'm proud of my Mexican roots.
Usually it's Ripolles, so Ripolles is actually very good.
It's getting there, right? You are the CEO and co-founder of Hiyalife.com, which is a place to recall and organize personal life stories privately or together with friends and family.
That's right.
You moved to London, I thought 20 years ago, but 17 years ago. You joined an early stage Bloomberg at the time, where you learned sales and marketing. Then you went on to UBS and then Nomura. And then you quit the whole city lifestyle.
That's right.
This sounds familiar. 2.5 years ago. I was almost 3 years ago. You were 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you started Hiyalife.com. You were a Wayra Accelerator project?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Wayra here in London. Yeah.
Okay, here in London. Welcome to Silicon Reel.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I read your story and it looks like my story, so I get really fascinated when guys like you come here, because this is kind of a startup.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I just want to know, before we get into your new business, what's the biggest difference between running a startup and working in banking?
Oh, where do I start? I guess one of the things I realize is how you in the corporate world, you tend to just do your work in a way with your eyes closed. You're not alive really. It's every day is the routine, is the sort of castration of initiatives, or anything that is new. You worked in banking, everything is super specialized.
Yeah.
So, we were just commenting earlier offline, whether you knew X or you knew Y, you are on the credit derivatives desk, right? And that's all you do, and that's what you specialize in, and you are the expert for that particular area, and potentially even for a particular region, right? Or a particular group of clients, right? And that's all you do. And you could do that for like 12 years, right? And you go into a meeting and you give your snippet as an expert, and that's it. And you go back to your desk and you do exactly the same thing. I was, I'm doing this more, it was an exciting side of banking, because it had, I was involved with electronic trading for equities. So you had a little bit of a sort of the evolution of technology, the trading side of it, the strategic side of starting something new when nobody was trading electronically. But, I was doing that, I guess, for too long, and it just became boring. And what you see here is I'm actually taking decisions, every day that can make a difference, for good or for bad. Right. And probably are things that I'm not necessarily an expert, and I just need to just go for your gut feeling, and it's exciting, it's scary also. So you just need to sort of load that rucksack and responsibility every day and just get on with it and try to make a difference. It's very, very different, obviously.
We've had companies like TransferWise in here and other ones that are trying to challenge the banks, and we talk about the innovator's dilemma. Yeah. And, by being in a banking company, I worked at ICAP, you worked in the banks, it's almost like the innovator gets crushed there. It's like no one wants to hear your new ideas. It's like, look, we're making great money, let's keep making great money. Any kind of a new idea, there's no real place for it in that banking structure.
I think they try to make it seem like they embrace good ideas, right? And obviously they're telling you, yeah, of course, if you've got ideas, come to me and, we'll make it happen, and, let's think outside of the box and blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's actually not true. Right. There is not, because culturally, there is this mitigation of risk, as you're saying, we're making money already, let's not mess things up, right?
It's not rock the boat, right?
Yeah, and it's not like they're bad people or anything. It's just, like you said, a culture of where there's just no point in rewarding this kind of innovation.
And the person that makes the decision to push a new idea through isn't rewarded enough for them to take that risk, right?
Right. So there's no big equity stake for them.
So they're just like, no, that's way more work, and I'm really not going to see the value or benefit, so we'll just leave it.
Yeah, or they just don't. They don't see the benefits of changing something that works, and at the end of the day, there's so many layers of management with or without budget. That it's just a grind and difficult to implement. So many times you just do like micro innovations, in your daily work, but obviously you're not really going to make a difference. In general.
Okay, that's very well said.
It sounds like ex-Bankers Anonymous.
Yeah, exactly.
My name's Colin Pyle, and I'm an ex-banker.
Yeah. And no one has any sympathy for us bankers, so they're like, yeah, whatever. But
I have no bitterness. It's you understand the attractiveness of that security, and they pay you well, but I guess unless there's a few that get paid really, really well, and there's another, there's a big mass of people that they're just grabbed by the, I was going to say by the balls.
It's okay, you're allowed to say that here.
Yeah, I can say, yeah. You just sort of, it's just enough for you to sort of stay another year and another year and another year.
Yeah, so the cash flow is just enough to keep your all of your kids in private school, to keep your house payments, to keep your car payments. And then I bet all of your old colleagues in the banking are like, wow, look at what Fernando's doing. He's challenging his brain and all that stuff. But yet they still have the kind of golden handcuffs to keep them doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. So, and one of the things you say in that, is that, I find that it's just very difficult for people to realize generally. I mean, if you're not in the startup, or if you're not working in this, what it takes to actually do it, and as you say, it's exactly that. I meet, a lot of my friends are still obviously in this world, and you meet them and they're like, yeah, it's amazing what you're doing. They feel proud because in a way everyone generally wants an exit, right, from the rat race, right? But they don't realize how actually difficult it is. The other day, a friend of mine was like, yeah, he works in market, it's like, yeah, this is a little bit like a startup, and a startup's, and I'm building this and I'm like, no, excuse me. It's not a startup, believe me. You've got a huge budget. You don't have any of the risks, that, right. Here we're walking a really thin line, right? We have to juggle all these things, and there's no net at the bottom. and it's the first time you've walked that line, right? Or potentially, I mean, at least in my case, right?
Yeah, it's another thing that comes up on this show is that tech startup is considered very glamorous, and especially like the city people are like, oh wow, but then you're like, it's a daily grind, and your budgets are low, and the stakes are high, and we don't have office space, we don't have budget, we don't have this. So anyways, I want to hear more about your business. So let's talk about hiyalife.com. We always ask guys some standard questions when they're here. So I just want to know, what have you done? What are your plans for this company? And why do you think you guys will win in the space that you've chosen?
You briefly introduced what we do, which is to allow people to crowdsource personal stories or even memories in one single place with friends, family, people they care, in a place that you can trust and where you can, manage privacy in a very transparent and clear way, right? Okay. So
it's a very interesting thing. I never heard anything like this before. Me neither. But as soon as you describe it, it sounds like I want to hear more about it.
So I guess the vision originally is to enrich and preserve personal identity through memories, and to bring people together. And it's very sort of big vision. But when we bring this down to earth, I guess going to the origins of the idea, when I was thinking of a trip I did with a friend from school many years ago, and it was just a random memory that came to my head one day as I was going out of the shower, and I was thinking, this is a beautiful trip, full of like really funny anecdotes that we did to Portugal, borrowed my mom's car, God knows why she allowed me to get her new car, and I was like 18, and we spent all the money the first week, and had lots of crazy adventures, and I was thinking about this and thinking, I don't speak with this guy, does he ever think about this? Because it's obviously an important part of my life, together with many other important parts, right? But surely for him, one day he's drinking coffee and he's thinking about this, right? And how cool would it be to actually send him that memory and say, hey, look, do you remember this? And for him to pick it up and go, oh, wow, of course I do. That's brilliant. And what about this anecdote in that trip? And what about that anecdote? And sort of build the story together, right? And be able to, I've got precious stories, with my mum and my side of the family, my mum's side being Spanish is, massive family with really funny stories, and to be able to share those stories with them, right? And then I've got stuff with my wife, and then I've got stuff, with my kids, and to be able to visualize all that, in the same way as I do when I sit down for dinner with my mates, and we remember stuff, or we speak about, funny things. Inevitably we speak about these things all the time, right? But where do you put those stories? The actual story, right? I mean, I'm not talking about, some photographs in Flickr, right, or, you show off in Facebook about maybe your kids or whatever, right? I'm talking about the actual stories behind that, right?
Okay.
We thought that at the time we wanted a place where all of these things could coexist and have its own idiosyncrasies, because what we're trying to do is connect content. That's what connects us as people, right? Content, really. I guess in Facebook you collect friends, and in LinkedIn you collect connections. But it's the content that really brings us together, right? We have stories. We have stories in common, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if we've got a lot of stories in common, we're going to be really, really sort of intimately connected. If we've got one story, and over time, I met Colin, we've gone out for a beer, and then tomorrow we go out again, and then in 1 year, we shared a lot of experiences, and that connection is what brings us together. Right. So what we're trying to do is provide a place where you can, let's say, build on that content, where content is the protagonist, right? And build it from the bottom up, making sure that we respect content and the stories as they should,
as opposed to respecting the friends or the status updates.
Well, I guess
you're taking a little bit of a dig here at some of our.
Well, yeah, I guess
some $1 billion companies.
Yeah, no, it's not. No. It's. I guess that rather than a dig, I'm trying to explain our difference. Right. I'm not having a dig, the incumbent guys, they're great, Facebook it's a source of content for us. and Instagram and potentially even Twitter and Flickr and all these guys, right?
But we've just seen Facebook admit that their adoption by younger children is dropping, right? The teenagers are using it less and less, and I think a lot of people feel a little frustrated and feel a little saturated by the Facebook phenomenon. Like they don't get what they thought they were going to get from this. It ends up being, like you said, maybe someone's just showing off or presenting a profile that they want everyone to believe, which people think is not true. I mean, we need a different version of it.
It is. It's very superficial, I think,
right.
at the end of it. People like or comment, but it's just, I just don't feel engaged. And people say they have 700-800 friends and 1,000. Like I once had about 700 friends and I chopped it down to about 150.
On Facebook?
On Facebook.
Okay, interesting.
Because I was like...
You find people doing that.
Yeah, I just felt that it just got out of control. And people that I met once and will never meet again were my Facebook friends, and I just don't know if that's
I guess
how I wanted to use it.
Clearly, it's a super incredible successful model, right?
Yeah.
So it would be stupid of me to say like, look, that's not valid, right? Because obviously it's an amazing thing that it's changed the face of the web. But all I'm saying is there's also a need for a different approach. And I'm not saying I'm, necessarily, going to compete on an alternative to Facebook. But there is space for other things apart from Facebook in the web. Because Facebook they have so many touch points. There's so many startups out there that, in a way, you could argue that Facebook is a competitor, right? And I mean, the way I see Facebook is just a communication layer in the web. It's the telephone line of this era, right? Like the kids, but obviously now you're saying that they're not so involved anymore, but generally like before they used to like pick up the phone and speak with friends. Now they just, they communicate via Facebook. But what we're saying is something different. So my positioning or the position of Hiyalife is we are actually a different thing,
What would a typical memory be? What would it look like on Hiyalife? Would it be a photo, a movie, a text? I mean, like if you can give us like a 1 minute example.
It's any combination of what you just said, right? So it's any combination of text, photo, video, location, tags. It always has an owner, and the owner always controls where it goes. Who can potentially see that, whether it's private or whether it's you share it privately with a couple of guys, or whether you want to make it public for everyone to see.
That's a big thing for you guys, privacy.
Yes.
I mean, in your description, you put that right up in the front.
I guess control of privacy,
okay.
Right? Because you could use Hiyalife and have lots of public memories, but at least you choose. That's your choice. So, we want you to be able to control that really, really easily. And also super important is that you own your content, right? So the stress here is that if you're going to trust Hiyalife or you're going to put some personal stuff, you don't want brands to actually, let's say, segment and mine and service ads with your content, right? You want to keep that, let's say, private in that sense, right? In the sense of ownership.
Understood.
But if I created a Google circle, for example, with people that I went to a whatever football game with, and then invited them, is that kind of the concept?
In terms of the sharing, yes,
right.
but okay. Still, I guess Google are still accessing the posts.
Right.
So you grant access to, as a product,
okay.
Colin being a product, you give access, by signing their T's and C's to potentially, segment or mine your content, whereas we don't, right? We just have a license to show your content in different formats according to your instructions. But the rights to your content are yours, right? And there's some interesting things that we're exploring also, which we can enter later on if you want, on how we bring brands with a different angle, let's say a not intrusive angle.
Okay,
right?
Understood. We always like to have a section here where we talk a little bit real and ask some devil's advocate questions. So
yes.
I'm going to hit you with an obvious question. How do you compete with someone like a Facebook or a Google Plus? I love your concept, and it looks like it might be something that one day might be acquired by Facebook as like a separate private area. But how do you go after such a giant, when you're coming from a startup standpoint?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't consider that we're actually necessarily going for them, right? There's lots of people on the side that are, as you say, they're fed up with certain models, right? So it's a matter of how you make sure that you transmit the values and they find value in Hiyalife, and then you can grow organically, right? We cannot be naive and pretend that we're going to sort of hit them face on, right? So I guess for us, the important thing is that when you arrive to Hiyalife.com, you find enough value to say, I think this is interesting for me. I can keep my stories here and see my dynamic life in a really fluid way, very different. I mean, go to very, very clear example. Go to your Facebook timeline, right, and take a look. When we finish this interview, and take a look at how it actually looks, right? It's full of irrelevant stuff. It's full of like noise, faces that come and go, people that have liked things, people that you befriended 2 years ago that promoted a content that suddenly appears there and it doesn't mean anything to you, and it's full, the actual format is full of noise. So we're trying to bring something different where you can just choose exactly what goes in there. So from a purely selfish point of view, I want to have call it like online bio, full of meaningful stuff that people send to me and that I send to people, and all in one place, so that I can go and check out stories about my kids. And it's a matter of, I guess, brand positioning,
Okay.
And that's a challenge, because it's not an easy thing to do. I think that when people get it and they see what we do, there's always like a wow moment. They go, wow, I get it. Right?
I kind of see the value right away when I heard about it.
Yeah, I guess it's just the adoption, right? So
yes.
It's not as simple an idea as just post a picture to Facebook, right? That's so ingrained in how we think now. It's so easy. So it's getting over that hurdle for people to understand your product and then
I agree. And the challenge is that, to tell you the truth, I mean, the core values are very, very different, but that's not really, and although we understand them and we think that, yes, you've got a really good point with privacy and ownership and all that, it's not an argument for the masses, right? So, you can't really win a battle based on that, because people will switch off. We'll go like, talking about ownership, and what's that? I'm not bothered about that. Of course, there's people that do, and then they immediately get it. But I'm talking about the masses, right? So we need to engage purely from the visual and how the product works, right? And the product works in a really natural, organic way, right? In the same way as real life works, and that's what we've tried to build is mimic how the real life interaction works around stories. Okay, so as long as you feel, there's a place for my stories, there's a place for me to post and boast, great, but there's a place for my personal stories, my stuff with my mom.
Right.
That's truly personal, right?
Yeah.
And with my kids, and it's actually a story about something funny they said the other day, and it's personal to me, my wife, and my kid. And it makes sense for the three of us. It doesn't make sense for, my 300 friends in Facebook, right?
Right. It's like a family scrapbook.
Yeah. Where do you keep that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're trying to bring sort of the scrapbook to the 21st century in a way.
Okay.
Right?
We had Simon Devonshire on here a few weeks ago, and he runs Wayra in London, which is a huge accelerator run that's owned by Telefonica. And I noticed you were a Wayra company, and I was wondering, because we haven't had one on, if you could just tell us why you went for that program and what it was like, as honest as you can be.
And I'm curious what stage you were in before you went into.
Right. Okay. So well, that's a lot. We could have a whole podcast about that. I guess our story is sort of quite specific, because we knew Wayra from Madrid. So to put you in context, my co-founder, so I founded Hiyalife together with a guy called David Gomez.
Why is it called Hiyalife?
Oh, well, that's a whole other story.
Okay. We have lots of podcasts.
Yeah, well, it's basically it's hello to life, and making it kind of sort of informal and sort of attractive and young. Say hello to life. So it's a very vital and very sort of optimistic term, and we liked, the sound of it, the phonetics of the word.
Yeah, it's catchy.
Yeah. So
So it's Hiyalife.
as in Hiya, as in Haya.
Hiyalife.
Hiyalife.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Back to Wayra Madrid.
So David. I founded Hiyalife with David, and so he's sort of engineer by trade, and he's the CTO, and he was involved in the startup community in Madrid with a few different projects, and one of them actually, which he had some share ownership, was accepted into Wayra Madrid. So that's when we actually met the whole Wayra team, and what Wayra was. We heard from the horse's mouth from Wayra Madrid that they were going to open Wayra in London, and so I met Simon one day for a chat, and he explained me all of this to me, and we thought it would be a great idea for us. I think that there's all kinds of different projects coming into Wayra at different stages, right? Some of them are just purely a PowerPoint, some of them are sort of established business or more established, We were sort of, from a corporate point of view, slightly advanced, right? So we had gone through a friends and family round. We had a structure. We had an office in Madrid with some developers. We were building a product, and all this. But from a product point of view, we were still very, very, very infant, and it's not an easy thing to build, as we've discussed, right? So we thought, look, we can do with sort of strategic consulting, with management, with business models, with a lot of advice, on the one hand, and on the other hand, I come from the city, so I really I wasn't very well connected in the startup community. So we thought it would be a great sort of injection of networking. For us, right, and to get into the community. So those were the main reasons. I mean, obviously, being sort of having an office in Madrid, and being sort of Spanish, the whole Telefonica link and all that was
that
also helped.
They don't put a lot of money in, right? Do they put it 50,000 euros in?
40,000 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you go with them? A year ago or more?
We went in June 2012, and as the first cohort, we stayed until March 2013. Usually 6 months, but they extended an extra 3 months. I think it was just a first cohort kind of deal where they extended it. They brought 3 months into the stay. They brought another 3 teams, and it just extended our stay for all of us, which was great.
And what was the experience like? What surprised you about the whole thing?
It was great. It was awesome. You have just basically a lot of opportunities that are open for you. You still obviously have to do all the hard work and try to get the juice. And Telefonica is a big animal, so you need to sort of move in between the lines to try to get the juice. And I actually think that probably we can. I always say that the best juice out of Telefonica is still to come. So Simon, if you're listening to me, I'll still get a lot of juice out of you guys, hopefully.
Juice. Now explain the term juice. I like it.
Well, I guess juice is a generalization to say, hopefully whether it's PR or contacts or technology or, just generally help. At the end of the day, they're shareholders.
Right, they're shareholders of yours. The relationship continues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they are with us for the long journey.
Which you're glad. You're happy to have given up that equity percentage.
Very happy. Very happy.
If you had to say sort of one negative for the Wayra experience, what would you, or something that they could improve on?
Yeah, I guess one thing negative, but it's not negative on the Wayra experience, is just the way it is that you get thrown into an environment where you have lots of people giving you lots of opinions, right? And it can be a little bit daunting, because it makes you think a lot and doubt yourself. And let's say you have somehow slight identity crisis, mini identity crisis. If you got someone coming to you, Brian, every day and saying, I think you're tall, I think you're small, I think you're fat, I think you're this, I think you're that, right?
That's true.
So, after a couple of months of that, you think, who the F I am, right?
So it really scrambles your head.
Yeah, exactly. So am I this or am I that, or should I be actually approaching things differently? And in a way, what you realize is you have to sort of follow your gut and isolate yourself a little bit from the noise and take a direction. There's a lot of this advice is really useful, and it makes you think in the right way, right? So how to select the useful stuff from the noise? I mean, obviously that is the difficult bit, but in a way, I guess that's a challenge, right?
Sure.
That now looking back, I think, were we slightly distracted or too distracted in certain things, right? I guess that for good or for bad, it's funny. The other day I was reading the original sort of pitch idea that I wrote whilst at UBS on a plane, about Hiyalife and what I thought this could be and how could it work. And the other day I was reading it, and it's just I was incredibly surprised to find it so accurate to what we built and what we have now. I don't know whether that's good or bad.
Is that a memory on your Hiyalife?
Well, yeah, it is. It is, but it's private.
Okay. You should share it with the community. Yeah.
So
you said your partner is in Madrid.
Yes.
But you're in London, and I was just wondering why you're in London, and if you think it's an integral part of your company's success.
Well, I guess I'm in London just because that's where I've lived. My family's here, so I lived all my life here, and it wouldn't. When we started this, we knew in our hearts that it had to be a UK initiative. Here's where you have the connections, where you got, at least within Europe, right, where you got the money, where we could have a better chance of success.
English, is that an important piece as well?
English also, yeah. I think that also with a consumer web product, I guess that for us, at least my vision is, if Hiyalife kicks off and when we become big, if we do become big, obviously we will. But I think that the US is a natural progression. Just because they understand consumer web. Both in terms of money and in terms of people, growing and using consumer web. So we thought, look, it has to be Anglo-Saxon. Based in the UK made sense because that's where I live, and that's where I've got my mortgage, and it would be quite a big thing, to quit your job and ask for a mortgage somewhere else. So from a purely practical point of view, obviously that's how it worked. And in the case of David, he's based in Spain. It's exactly the same situation in terms of his family and the schools and all this and that. So we thought, well, actually, it could work because value for money for the same quality of developer, is probably like a third less expensive in Spain. I think you probably read the papers in the last couple of years.
Youth unemployment really high.
Yeah, exactly. So we can find good guys, at competitive rates, and sort of have our development cost center there, which makes sense. Also, obviously, David being the CDO and the engineer, he could manage that process from there, and we could manage sort of this sales and marketing from here.
It's a nice angle. I hadn't thought about that.
So that's
that is true.
I mean, it is challenging to be apart. Even though you got Skype and you got, you share all kinds of sharing mechanisms, and we sort of visit each other, it is quite a challenge. You have to make a good effort to keep it tight.
Yeah. It's tough unless you're in the same room.
Yeah, because, the whole office banter and the whole sort of exchange of ideas, it's when you're in the same room, obviously it does happen more naturally, right?
You were in banking for a long time, and you were in equities, so you must have been looking at all sorts of different companies, different business models, and now you've been in the startup sector here in London for 2 years. If you had to sign a non-compete and you couldn't be in the social media space or whatever, what do you call it, consumer media space for the next 5 years, what would you go into? What do you find exciting about London tech?
What, as in
different sectors.
Invest in a different sector.
Yeah, or if you had to start a company and it couldn't be what you're doing now.
I don't know. The other day, like as in like having other ideas of other things that you could do. I guess if I tell you, I have to shoot you.
Really?
No, you know
I've been
what?
shot before.
No, the other day actually, Brian.
Twice.
There's all kinds. I mean, I have all kinds of different ideas. I guess I'm too busy with what I'm doing now, but I don't know. I guess something definitely simpler, more concrete. I mean, the other day I was actually thinking, why don't we build something to read you articles, whilst you're on the tube or whilst you're walking. Have you thought about that?
Oh, to read it to you.
Yeah.
Like to tell it to you, like read it in your. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love audiobooks.
Audible.
Yeah.
Audible.com.
And actually, does it exist? Because I want to download that. Does it?
I don't know if it's
it's
not like current articles, so you couldn't read like the BBC, the morning
Right, well, let's do that.
highlights. But you could. But Audible is amazing. I
Keep
listen
it
to
quiet only
audiobooks.
to your podcast community.
Yeah, we've got a few days. Actually, got one day until people can hear about it. Colin, what's your take on this? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing?
I think my first question is: so you have 4-year-old twins,
Yes.
and when did you start Hiyalife?
A couple of years ago.
So how did that conversation go?
That
Because I
was-
think there's a lot of guys out
Man,
there that aren't only worried about the cash flow and the mortgage, and here you are, you stepped away from a good job, and you had to go tell your wife, say, hey, I know we have two little ones.
That was the most difficult pitch ever.
That's
Forget about pitching to a VC
Investor?
or
Yeah.
Every time I've got a pitch, a VC pitch or a sales pitch or something to do, I think that's easy.
easy.
It has to be easy,
Right.
After it's funny that because actually David also has 3 kids, so we
Right.
always say that we are the London startup with more kids per founder because we've got 3 each, right?
Yeah, you're bringing up the average.
Yeah, exactly. So it's difficult. It's difficult also because I guess that when you're starting in this scene, there's a lot of networking, a lot of events,
Sure.
a lot of and you can't, you've got a family to go back to, and you've got to take care of that business. So it's kind of difficult to combine, and you need a very sort of understanding and hardworking wife. And from a financial point of view, obviously, is difficult, because you're sort of scratching from your savings, and you see sort of, when you actually start, it's the end game is sort of very far away, right? And you're like, yeah, I can last. You don't get worried. But suddenly, time goes by, and you sort of see it there in the horizon. It's kind of there, and you're like
A mirage.
You're like, oh my God, I better really kick some bum and make this happen, because, I've got responsibilities, and if this suddenly, come on board, I'm going to have to find a way to provide, right? There's only as much sort of boiled eggs and white rice that you can feed your children with, right? So, sometimes you have to give them a steak, right?
Sometimes.
And they're not getting any cheaper, So yeah, no, it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. Yeah, you have to sort of box it and try to isolate that. The thing that I sometimes think is that when people, I remember when I first sort of took the decision to do it. Someone told me, if you really, want to raise some money, they really need to see that you are committed. You're committed to the project, and that if you need to remortgage your house, you will do it, and that if you need to sell, your watch, you will do it, and if you need to, and I sometimes I think, nobody's going to come with that kind of speech to me in the sense that, look, you can't get more commitment.
Sure.
If someone tells me, are you committed? I say, well, I think just look at, the background and.
Right. Do you ever think about going back to banking?
Oh, that would be horrible. But look,
You're corrupted now. It's like fine wine. You can't go work in the box anymore. I don't know if I could last. I
don't know if I could. I mean, to tell you, look, listen. I've got 3 kids actually. So after the twins, I had a little blissful accident. He's an amazing little boy. And you got 3 kids. You have to provide. If you have to do it, you'll do it, right?
Yeah.
But look, you probably try to look for something different. Maybe use the skills that I've learned here and sort of somehow combine them to find, not necessarily go back to investment banking, because that would be a killer.
Yeah, it would be a creative killer. I mean, it's funny because you think about, the income you used to have and how that can pretty much solve all your financial problems in the short term, but then you realize what kind of a headspace you were in to leave, and you just would be so stifled, especially after you've had a little bit of room to flap your wings,
I know.
and try some new things. So
I know. It would have to be something very, very specific and extremely well paid, otherwise, which, it's difficult because, things have moved on, and, you I guess also you've been 2 years out. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't thought about it. I mean, probably I should, right?
No, it's good. It's a good answer right there if you haven't thought about it. So.
Yeah.
No, I guess I should, you still receive calls from headhunters and stuff like that.
I don't.
Yeah, you have to. Well, I guess
they
you have
watch
to,
the show.
Well, you have to nurture it. You have to nurture
He's too far gone.
I'm just
Too far gone.
After the ayahuasca.
After the DMT episode, they were like, we're
not
deleting his number.
Yeah, they don't call me anymore. For Hiyalife, I mean, what do you see for like the next 2 years and the next 5 years? Like, where do you guys want to be? Is it like a certain kind of head count? Is it a partnership with another company where you can provide X and Y? Is it an exit scenario? I mean, what?
Well, I mean, currently we're sort of at a very, very crucial stage. So we just released an app a couple of weeks ago, which is live in the App Store. We've been running the website in its current format for like 3 months. So we're sort of gathering data of usage, and we basically need some cash, and we're going out, meeting some people, to get hopefully some money to really expand, right? To expand the team, get the product to where there's still a lot of things that we need to get right, and properly explore our sort of monetization strategy, and hopefully to spend actually some money in marketing. Right, as opposed to free marketing and trying to get, which is always a bit of a grind, which we also try, right? But actually get some professionals involved on the marketing side. So yeah, hopefully we'll get there. We'll get the cash that we need, and we'll inject that back into the product, into the growth. So we see that there's. I mean, we want to grow, obviously, like for this kind of product, organically. So, make sure that people see the value and are actually sending memories to each other and growing that content. But also through brands where, we feel that we got something quite interesting. Because we've been speaking with a lot of big and small brands, and they see how they can actually surface their digital archive in a really nice, fluid way. And it's all about content marketing nowadays, right? Like bringing the personal story. That's what really engages, right? So
yeah.
they don't say buy the Volkswagen Golf because it's 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, and they say. My wife was pregnant and was going to give birth, and I had a Volkswagen Golf, so I wasn't worried about arriving to the hospital in time.
Yeah, you're
or
right.
something like that, right?
Yeah. There's a personal story.
Yeah, they always bring that, right? So we think that we combine in a very natural way personal stories, or your personal stories, with brand stories, and allow you to consume the brand stories and pick them up and bring them into your life, and then contribute with your personal stories to a brand corporate journey. So a brand can very easily crowdsource their story with memories of Brian and Colin and Fernando and this and that, and bring them all into life. And people see those stories as the best kudos ever. When there's something emotional going on with the brand, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to sort of.
Are brands afraid of, if you open it up, it's hard to control the good and the bad, and inevitably someone might put up a bad story.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And well, there's two elements there. I mean, that's a question that we've. So the way we tackle that is twofold. One is, first of all, brands can curate exactly what goes in.
Sure,
so obviously, potentially they could censor or not promote the bad stuff into the public eye. But then what we do is we actually flip the content around. So if I send a bad story and a brand replies to that bad story, as long as obviously they reply to it
Sure.
with a solution, that would get flipped. So the solution becomes the headline, right? So what the brand is promoting is how well we dealt with this bad experience, right? So it's a way of turning things around.
Interesting. I think brands are looking for that kind of web 3.0 where you see it all the time with really intelligent brands where, like you said, they'll do a short film about a product where the film will be about a scenario and then the product is just there in the background. And you fall in love with, like you said, the story of someone taking their wife to the hospital and then there's the golf in the background or something like that. So.
Yeah, and
Volkswagen, please contact us. We're looking for sponsorship as we
yeah, exactly. But yeah, and also like the history, you know, behind, you know, brands are like increasingly trying to be proud of their history, you know, and the fact, you know, the other day, I mean, even like McDonald's is having an ad about some guy eating the 1935 burger, you know, and having a flashback of how things were in McDonald's, you know, bringing the past, you know, we are a proud brand and we had a history, you know, with our consumers, you know, and you have to feel proud and identified with that, right? So I think that whole element of being part of that journey and surfacing the history in a really sort of on your eyes, I think that's quite interesting for brands, you know.
How about sporting events? I'd be like, it just sounds perfect for me for a football team or whatever to have, you know, a curated timeline of that game. Yeah. And people could like just crowdsource it.
That's exactly. I mean, cool. and funnily enough, Man City actually have implemented a solution already with some really cool guys from Manchester, and you know some startup, but you know it's kind of more of a tool. But the concept of actually going out to let's crowdsource, you know, memories, the history of the club together with the fans, right? So we've got a few showcases. We're speaking with Barcelona. Okay. You know, it's a big animal, right? So it will take time, but they're super interested, and you know they love the concept of just bringing stories of fans into one single place, and how proud I am as a fan that the story of when I first took my kid to see a football match is actually part of the public journey of Barcelona, right? Which is open to everyone to see, right? And they see the story of Fernando and you know, even though I support Real Madrid, right?
Okay, just for the record. You know, it's
just for the record.
It's an exciting niche. I really like it. You know, Fernando, we always close the show by asking a very classic question. I'm going to ask you the same one we ask everyone. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Fernando Ripolles and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him?
Oh, wow. Well, I guess that I would say just really think about what you love and just go for it. You know, don't. You know, I always think. You know, I love cinema, right? And I love cameras and technical equipment and photography. And I would have loved to be a film director. That's, for me, that's a perfect job. You know, it has a creative side of it. You know, you have the scripting, the managing, the technical side, the money side, the story side. You know, all that I find it fascinating. And you know, I probably would have said, look, do you like cinema? Yes, go for it. Just, you know, go and study cinema and just follow that dream. You know, and I guess that you're so engrinded by you know, I guess the culture, you know, that you need to get a good job and earn money, right? And when you're growing up, and you're like, unless you got a vocation, like I want to be a doctor or I want to be, you know, but otherwise, you know, you're like, you know, I just need to sort of get good degrees, get a good, you know, go to uni, get a good education, find a job, and get paid lots of money, right? And that's sort of what is sort of embedded in your head, as opposed to what is it that I like? Right? And if you like something, then actually apply yourself, study that, just go for it, right? So
good advice. On that same note, to the 20-year-old listening who wants to, do what you're doing with your life right now, what would you tell them to do? Would you advise them to go into banking? Something Colin and I always talk about, or do you think that's a big mistake?
Grumpy old man.
Well, you know what? If they, if I would advise them to go into banking if they actually really love, the whole banking thing. Right? But if they love it, so I've got like my godson. He's an economist by trade, and he just loves it. He loves, he meets with his mates and discusses, macroeconomics and stuff like that. And
that's hardcore.
I know. So, but he loves it. So he's working long hours in some hedge fund, and good for him. If you really love it, then great. But if you're doing it for the money, that's a dangerous. Dangerous. I mean, I have no bitterness about it. It's put me in this situation, so I'm very happy about it. But then think twice. If you're just doing it just because you think it's a good, well-paid job and you want the money, then think twice about, if you could find something that you like and make money, that's the ticket, right? So, target that, right?
I think Colin and I are thinking these days that it is a great place for a young man to kind of learn what it's like to be in a corporation, what it's like to have a boss, what it's like to do things you don't want to do. Yeah. And because a lot of times if you go from university to startup, you don't get a lot of these things. That's true.
And also it sets you up hopefully with a little bit of bucks so you can get your life started, right? And so I think that's important also to sort of take off a little bit,
Yeah, definitely.
Because otherwise, you end up living at your parents, when you're still 30 or 35, right? And
that's tough. That's a tough rap.
Yeah.
Fernando, how do people get a hold? I mean, if they go to hiyalife.com, what's the easiest thing should they do? They go up, set up an account. I mean, like, what's the easiest way for them to get started with you guys?
Yeah. So just go to hiyalife.com and register. You'll see that obviously we are working on the initial journey to make it guide you more through it. So now at the beginning, as in its current state, you'll see a little bit empty, but you can go to discover and see what other people are doing with memories and with content, and basically just hit the new memo and create any, just think about, let's say, your killer story, your party killer story, just put it in there. Or there's something called gather moments. So you just bring all your albums really, really quickly from Facebook, in this case. So you bring them together in our format, in our sort of memory or story format. So there's we're working on a lot of stuff also with blogs. We think it could be a really good way to surface blogs. So we're working on how to do that easily with WordPress. But the other way to start is through the app.
Yeah.
So just download the app if you've got an iPhone. And if you don't, I'm sorry, but we're looking to get some money to the Android too. We had to start somewhere, right?
That's good.
And you just download the app and start getting some of the photos and some of the stories that you got on your phone in there and take it from there. I mean, obviously both speak to each other, app and web. So hopefully you start building. Best thing is to also start sharing some of this stuff privately with friends, family, and get them to participate, because that's the fun. The fun bit is to actually wake up in the morning and find out, a friend has sent you, that story that really gives you a big smile in the morning, right? Or your wife is creating something, about the kids, and stuff like that. So the best thing is to actually send each other stories.
No, it's an exciting space. I wish you lots of luck with this. I'm a little tired of this, two-dimensional social media space where it's just look at my picture, look what I did. It's I don't know, it's not very inspiring. So this is really cool. I think the medium-term corporate angle is even more exciting. So,
yeah, really cool.
So that's very cool. Thanks so much. Twitter, how do people find you?
At Hiyalife.
Okay.
So at Hiyalife and Facebook also. So we have a page there, Hiyalife in Facebook. And again, when you create a memory, you can actually share it, share the URL. If it's public, you can share it in Twitter or even in Facebook. So you can actually share the story in the Hiyalife format if you want, or even sign up. Now in my signature, in my emails, I just see my public life story here. Nice. And it just clicks, so you can just go and check out, all my stories. But even like my dad, you know, he's like 77, and he calls me from Spain. You know, what are your kids up to? You know, what's good? Can you update me? I just say, you know, just go hiyalife.com/u/repo, RIPO, which is my address. So hiyalife.com/u/RIPO. And then you'll see my public stories.
All about
obviously,
Fernando.
only the not the private stuff, not the naughty stuff.
No.
But you can see all the stories about the kids.
So you're raising funds. You're pitched to investors. Do you just give them a Hiyalife link?
Yeah, exactly. And I send them a memo of our meeting.
There we go. Cool.
Yeah.
Silicon Real business, anything going on, Colin, that I forgot, or you know?
Yeah, no, all good. Again, we're some people have reached out because we're looking for some help. So keep on reaching out, and you know, we got a Pinterest page now, which is really cool, and that's just from people helping out, just paying it forward. We're just trying to do a good thing here, tell great stories, and the more people can help us out, the better it is. So
Good stuff.
Actually, so you know what I was thinking? That for the Movember campaign, you should use Hiyalife, so we can see the evolution of your dodgy mustache.
There we go.
Yeah. So you could have a pic, you know, a timeline of the evolution of your dodgy mustache, and you can call the account, you know, whatever the name you give to your tash. You know?
I'll make it public and then
Colin's Tash.
Now that's a pitch.
Stash.
The man's always pitching. I like
Not
that.
bad.
All right, you
when
should
you're
do
raising
this.
money, you're in the pitch.
You should do that, definitely.
I will do it.
All right, cool. We're on Twitter at Silicon Real. We're really responsive. We would love to hear your ideas for guests. We just want to get everybody from the whole community, VCs, guys that are starting up, accelerators, the whole nine. So give us a shout on at Silicon Real. If you're listening to us on iTunes, come check us out on YouTube channel Silicon Real. And it's all good. As we say, it's about the people. Fernando, pleasure having you on. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to have a chat with you guys.
Awesome,
great.
man. All right, all the best, guys. Take care.
Silicon Valley, we'll meet with VCs, with corporates, with other startups, and usually at that point, like our startup that has been in the program for about 6 months, kind of gets what they need to be doing, kind of understands what they need to do, and then they can really take full advantage of the US trip. Post-US trip, they tend to kind of already grow into the maturity stage, at which point they either continue coming to the sessions that they want to come to,